The sea lanes that knit the Indo-Pacific together have always been more than water and wind. They are the arteries of trade, the pathways of diplomacy, and increasingly the stage for military signaling. In the last week, those lanes have become a theater of tension, a delicate choreography of ships and aircraft whose movements carry messages as plainly as any diplomat's words. Reports say that Chinese naval task groups have been operating closer to Japan's southern islands than is customary, with warships pushing into key maritime routes that sit between Tokyo and the wider Pacific. Our new security initiative. The action followed a reported transit by a Japanese destroyer through the Taiwan Strait, an Operation Beijing called a provocation, and it has prompted Beijing to accelerate a series of drills and maritime maneuvers. What once might have been routine navigation is now read regionally and globally as part of a strategic contest over influence, reach, and deterrence, leading some of the Chinese drill. As is what has been described as a Type 052D destroyer, identified in briefings as the Bao. The vessel is part of a more powerful task group operating near the southern Japanese island chain. Analysts note that the fleet transited a waterway described in local reporting as the Yokawati corridor, a rare movement closer to the Japanese mainland than previous exercises typically went. The symbolism is as important as the tactically obvious. The Chinese Navy is signaling that it can and will project force beyond the familiar corridors it has used in the past. Those moves have occurred in close proximity to multinational exercises of a very different character. The annual Balikatan drills, a long-standing partnership between the United States and the Philippines, have expanded. For the first time at scale, reporting indicates that Japan joined the exercises alongside the United States and the Philippines, while allies including Australia and France participated in live-fire drills TACI, NG Place, in waters near both the Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea. Officials put personnel numbers in the tens of thousands. Accounts place the contingent at more than 17,000 troops engaged in combined operations. The scale and the geographic breadth of these maneuvers underscore a deepening military alignment in the region. China, for its part, has been matching those steps with its own escalation. Days after joint patrols were reported in the East China Sea, Chinese warships pushed beyond what is commonly referred to as the first island chain, a string of islands and archipelagos running roughly from Japan through Taiwan to the Philippines that marked the first natural maritime barrier off the East Asian mainland. An aircraft carrier movement through the Taiwan Strait was also reported, an action interpreted by many as an expansion of operational reach and a demonstration of deterrent capacity. At the center of this confluence of ease, status, and security shaped the calculations of Beijing, Taipei, Tokyo, and Washington alike. The island sits astride critical sea lines of communication and lies within the geographic sweep of the first island chain. Any sustained escalation nearby risks disrupting commercial traffic, unsettling markets, and crucially, increasing the chances of miscalculation at sea, an arena where small mistakes can have outsized consequences. Observers point to a broader shift in Japan's posture. Tokyo's military has been acquiring new capabilities and taking a sharper stance on regional security, increasingly operating alongside U.S. forces and partners in ways that some here describe as more forward-leaning than in years past. That posture, combined with Japan's naval movements through sensitive waterways, has sharpened the rhetoric in Beijing and has changed the calculus for maritime operations in and around contested waters. The confluence of multinational exercises and high-profile Chinese deployments has turned routine sea movement into strategic signaling. What follows is a look not at speculation, but at what these movements mean in practical terms for navigation, diplomacy, and the risk landscape in the Indo-Pacific. First, the navigational picture. Major commercial shipping routes thread through the East China Sea, the Taiwan Strait, and the South China Sea. A significant share of global trade, including energy shipments, manufactured goods, and raw materials, depends on unimpeded passage through these corridors. When naval forces increase their footprint, three direct consequences follow. When merchant captains and shipping companies recalibrate risk assessments and may reroute to avoid perceived hotspots, which raises transit times and costs. Two, naval escorts, communication blackouts, and temporary safety zones around exercises can add logistical friction for carriers and container ships. Three, increased military traffic raises the chance of close approaches radio misunderstandings or navigational incidents that, while unintended, can trigger diplomatic crises. Second, the diplomatic picture. Every transit, every live fire event, every show of force is a message. From Beijing's perspective, naval demonstrations near Japan and through waters close to the Japanese mainland are a display of both capability and will, a public reminder that China is prepared to operate farther from home. From Tokyo's perspective, participation in large-scale allied exercises signals solidarity with partners and a commitment to collective deterrence. For Washington and its allies, demonstrating interoperability, the ability for forces from different nations to communicate, target, and maneuver together is meant to raise the military cost of coercive actions. Those messages complicate crisis management. When multiple actors are simultaneously signaling, incentives to double down may rise faster than incentives to step back. Each side watches the other for signs of weakness or resolve. In that environment, the absence of clear, open lines of communication or established incident management protocols can turn a dangerous approach into an incident involving damage, loss of life, or sudden escalation. Third, the military strategic picture. The first island chain remains a key geographic concept in regional planning. For navies operating beyond that line, changes the logistics, the timelines, and the force compositions necessary to sustain presence in operations. Carrier transits through constrained waters like the Taiwan Strait are particularly visible and carry both tactical and psychological weight. Carriers are mobile symbols of power projection. Their movements are global headlines and local headlines alike. At the same time, modern naval diplomacy is no longer about a single class of ship. Destroyers, frigates, amphibious ships, submarines, and aircraft all play roles. Integrated task groups combining air, surface, and subsurface. Platforms can extend reach and complicate an adversary's planning. The reported presence of a Type 05 2D destroyer in these maneuvers reflects the multidimensional character of the operations, radar and missile systems, anti-submarine capabilities, and area air defense that together change the tempo of any maritime encounter. Fourth, alliance politics. Exercises like Balikatan are designed to improve readiness, interoperability, and signaling. The decision by multiple partners to participate at scale, including nations historically less present in these particular waters, demonstrates a willingness to broaden burden sharing and deterrent posture. For allies and partners, this sends a clear message that collective security arrangements are active and adaptable. For China, such alignment may be interpreted as a consolidation of countervailing power, provoking corresponding countermeasures. This cycle action, response, counter-response is hardly new. What is different now is TT. Heat density of near simultaneous activity across multiple maritime zones combined with advanced systems and a rapidly modernizing fleet structure. That density compresses decision time and compresses the margin for error. If the region is to avoid a miscalculation, 3 pragmatic steps matter. 1, clarity. All parties benefit when exercises and transits are neither ambiguous nor deliberately inflammatory. Advanced notifications, transparent scheduling, and established safety protocols help reduce friction. Navies already use protocols to avoid collisions and to manage encounters at sea, extending similar transparency to allied and rival movements, especially in contested corridors, makes strategic sense. 2, communication. Hotlines between militaries, diplomatic channels that remain open at the working level, and mechanisms for incident investigation are essential. When incidents do occur, as they inevitably will, rapid, factual communication can prevent escalation born of rumor and uncertainty. 3, rules of engagement and restraint. Clear, shared standards for safe distances, radio procedures, and the use of force in contested environments reduce the scope for dangerous misinterpretation. Such standards are not a panacea, but they lower the probability of small events cascading into larger crises. The economic stakes are also real. Markets dislike uncertainty. Insurance costs rise with perceived risk, affecting insurance premiums for vessels and cargoes. Shipping companies change routes, sometimes paying more to avoid choke points. Industries that depend on just-in-time supply chains feel the ripple effects. Even brief periods of elevated tension can alter investment decisions and add a premium to geopolitical risk. All of this is happening against a backdrop of complex domestic politics in multiple capitals. Leaders weigh strategic imperatives alongside public opinion, economic considerations, and alliance commitments. For Taiwan, the immediate concession is deterrence and survival, how to maintain the island's self-defense capacity while managing the daily pressures that come from being positioned at the heart of a geopolitical contest. For Japan, the calculus centers on deterrence, alliance solidarity, and the defense of maritime approaches to its territory. For the United States and other partners, the challenge is to demonstrate resolve without creating conditions in which miscalculation becomes the proximate cause of conflict. It is worth underscoring a difficult reality. Deterrence and dialogue are complementary, not contradictory. A robust defensive posture can coexist with open channels for de-escalation, and in fact, the presence of those channels makes robust deterrence safer by reducing the odds that an accident or misunderstanding spirals out of control. There are also less military, but no less consequential levers. Economic interdependence remains a powerful moderating force. Many of the same states in the region depend on mutually beneficial trade, investment, and supply chains. Diplomatic engagement, quiet, persistent, and at multiple levels, can create space for crisis management even when high politics remain fraught. In this environment, small steps matter. Agreements to exchange notices of major exercises, to publish safe quarters during live fire drills, to reaffirm commitments to freedom of navigation and international law. These are incremental, but they lower the chance that a tactical move becomes strategic catastrophe. The human dimension cannot be ignored. Sailors, aviators, and mariners on duty do their jobs in often narrow and perilous conditions. The decisions they make under pressure are shaped by the policies and orders issued far from the forward line. Clear instructions, concise rules of engagement, and a shared emphasis on de-escalation reduce the cognitive burden on those in the moment. Finally, there is the rhetorical dimension. When leaders use measured language, emphasize shared interests, and acknowledge the cost of conflict, they make their own options more flexible. Conversely, sharp public rhetoric can harden domestic audiences and reduce wiggle room for compromise. What we are witnessing in the Indo-Pacific is less a single cause than an alignment of causes, a sharpened Chinese maritime posture, coalition exercises meant to reassure partners, and decharge coercion and geography that concentrates strategic friction. The immediate imperative for all actors, state and non-state, is to manage those pressures prudently. To say the region is entering a more volatile phase is not to predict war. It is to recognize that volatility grows when powerful actors increase simultaneous activity in the same spaces, and when communication and safety mechanisms are not strengthened to match. The lesson of the last century and the last few decades is stark. Miscalculation is often easier than anyone intends. For those watching from shores and ports, the calculations will be about more than tanks and missiles. They will be about whether the global economy can run uninterrupted, whether shipping lanes remain reliable, and whether diplomatic channels can be kept open even as navies maneuver. For those in uniform, the question will be how to balance readiness and restraint. For leaders, the test is whether they can combine credible defense with credible avenues for de-escalation. As these movements continue to play out, the voices of caution and prudence deserve amplification. Military exercises and deployments are a fact of modern statecraft, but they must be accompanied by the hard work of diplomacy, transparency, and institutionalized communication. Without those complements, the risk grows that the very tools meant to preserve peace and deterrence become the triggers for unintended confrontation. And amid the strategic analysis and the policy prescriptions, there is a simpler, more human note: someone on a crowded deck of a freight, air, a sailor on watch in a gray dawn, a family in a port city. Their lives and livelihoods are touched by decisions made in distant capitals. The stakes are tangible, and the costs of miscalculation are not hypothetical. As the region navigates this new phase, the imperative is clear: maintain readiness, but couple it with restraint. Demonstrate resolve, but preserve the channels that diffuse crisis. Respect national interests, but recognize the shared interest in keeping the sea lanes safe, open, and free. Only through that blend of strength and statesmanship can the Indo-Pacific avoid slipping from risky signaling into dangerous confrontation. One voice captured a mood that is threaded through recent exchanges and headlines. I feel like you feel heat, heat, heat. Endpoint Low's words, fragmented and urgent, are more than a refrain. They are a reminder that the temperature in the region is rising and that cooling it will require care, clarity, and a steady commitment to command. On occasion,